You can use first-party data like email addresses and phone numbers to improve your tracking accuracy. Using Stape's Enricher Power-Up lets you do this automatically with server-side tagging. And in this video, I'll show you how to set it up and use it with Google Ads Enhanced Conversion Tracking. If you're just getting started with server-side tagging, I recommend watching my tutorial series. I've included a link in the description. The series covers everything you need to set up and configure before you start using the Enricher Power-Up. Before we begin, I want to give a shout out to Stape for sponsoring this video. Stape provides managed hosting for server-side Google Tag Manager containers and includes a range of features to improve your tracking setup. I've included a link to Stape in the description below. Okay, let's start by covering what the Enricher Power-Up does and its benefits. Let's head to Stape's website. We're looking at the product page for the Enricher Power-Up. I've included a link to this page in the description below this video. The Enricher Power-Up stores user data from your server-side events and automatically adds it to future events when that data is missing. For Google Ads, this means more complete conversion data and better event match quality. The benefits include a more complete view of the customer journey. The Enricher stores selected first-party data like email addresses, names, and phone numbers when they're available in an incoming event. Then, when a future event comes in from the same user without those details, it fills in the gaps using the details that have already been collected. The result is more consistent, complete event data across your tags and platforms. The second is improved event match quality. This is the key benefit for what we're covering today. Platforms like Google Ads and Google Analytics use custom identifiers to match your conversion events back to real users. The Enricher enriches conversion events with known user data, even when that data wasn't included in the event directly. This can give you more accurate attribution and better data for campaign optimization. You can also use it to help connect online and offline activity. For example, say someone downloads a resource from your website and later becomes a customer after a call with your sales team. Because the conversion happens offline, there's no automatic connection back to the original session on the website. The Enricher helps bridge the gap using stored user data, so you can see which marketing activities drove the conversion. And finally, cross-device tracking. Customers often switch between devices before converting. Without shared identifiers, those interactions can appear as separate users in your reports. The Enricher helps by reusing known identifiers across sessions and devices. For this video, we're going to focus on using the feature with Google Ads. We're going to use it with enhanced conversion tracking. Okay, let's head to Google Ads. And we're going to check that our conversion has enhanced conversions enabled. To do this, let's navigate to Goals and select Summary under Conversions. Scrolling down, we can see a list of all the conversion categories that have conversion actions configured. The conversion action I want to use is under Sign-ups, so let's toggle open this category using the arrow on the right. Now I'm going to select the conversion action. And let's click Edit Settings. At the bottom, we can see Enhanced Conversions is set to Off, so let's select this. And let's enable the option to use Enhanced Conversions. With this feature enabled, Google Ads will use any first-party data sent with conversion events to improve the accuracy of your conversion tracking, support conversion modeling, and more. And this first-party data is exactly what the Enricher Power-Up is going to help us send to Google Ads. Okay, Now let's save the settings. Now that Enhanced Conversions is enabled, it's time to configure the Enricher Power-Up in Stape. To do this, let's head to Stape. I've already logged into Stape, so let's select our server-side container. Now let's select the Power-Ups tab. Let's scroll down and look for Enricher. And let's click Use next to Enricher. Let's enable the feature. There are a few different settings we can adjust for the Enricher Power-Up. First, we can select the enrichment mode. There are two options to choose from. The default is automatic. With this mode selected, the Enricher handles everything for you. When stored user data is available and an incoming event is missing that information, the Enricher adds it automatically. No extra configuration is needed in your server-side container tags. The second option is semi-automatic. With this mode selected, the data is still stored, but you need to manually create variables in your server-side container and map them to your tags. This gives you more granular control over exactly where the data gets used, but it does require additional setup. For most setups, I recommend starting with automatic. So let's ensure automatic is selected. Next, we need to choose how the Enricher stores user data. There are two methods available, and you can enable both at the same time. The first option, which is also enabled by default, is Use Cookie. With this option enabled, Stape creates a cookie in the browser that stores the user's data. The main advantage of cookies is they're simple to set up and there's no additional cost to use the option. The downside is that people can clear their cookies, so the stored data isn't always available. You'll also need to consider consent, which I'll touch on in a moment. The second option is Use Store. This stores the data in a database. It's more reliable than using cookies, but storing the data counts towards your usage quota for your Stape subscription. For better reliability, I recommend using Stape Store. So let's enable this option. You will also need to activate Stape Store to use the databases. We'll cover the steps to do this in a moment. And we're also going to leave the Use Cookie option enabled. This provides added reliability. Next, we need to decide on the consent settings for the Enricher Power-Up. We need to decide if we should only store data if marketing consent is given. Enabling these options means that user data will only be stored if marketing consent has been granted by the user. If you're using a consent management platform and you have users in regions where consent is required, like the EU, then you'll want to enable this option. It ensures the Enricher Power-Up only stores data for users who've opted in to marketing tracking. So if you've configured consent mode in your server-side container, I recommend enabling these options. Let's enable these. It's also worth highlighting that because the Enricher stores user data, you may need to update your cookie policy and consent banner to reflect this. Next, we can select the user data we want the Enricher to capture and store. This lets you control which information the Enricher will save when that information is available in incoming events. All of the data points are enabled by default. For enhanced conversions with Google Ads, the most important data points are email address, phone number, and address details, including first and last name. I'm going to disable date of birth, gender, and external ID as I don't need these for my implementation. There's also a data point called Marketing and Analytics Cookies. With this option enabled, the Enricher will capture and restore cookies, including cookies related to Google Ads, Google Analytics, Meta, TikTok, LinkedIn, and more. Keeping this option enabled can preserve click data across sessions. which is useful for attribution beyond just enhanced conversions. So let's leave this option enabled too. When you're ready, click Save Changes. The enricher is now configured, but since we're using Stape Store, we need to activate this feature to use the database. To do this, let's select the Store tab. And let's click Activate Store. The Stape Store is now activated, and we've also configured the Enricher Power-Up. So now, whenever user data flows through your server-side container, for example when someone submits a form, the enricher will store that information. And when a future event comes in for the same user without those details, the enricher will add them automatically before forwarding the event to Google Ads. The next step is to ensure that user data is sent to our server-side container. We need the information we want to use with the enricher coming through with events as they're being collected. To do this, we're going to adjust our Google Tag Manager web container. Okay, let's head to Google Tag Manager. Before we adjust the web container, let's take a look at the user data we're going to use. To do this, let's click Preview. I'm going to enter the URL of my demo site and click Connect. My website loads, and let's view a product. Now let's add the product to the cart, and let's click Checkout. Now let's enter our contact details. And let's complete the purchase. Now let's open Tag Assistant. And let's select the Form Submit event on the left. Now let's select the Data Layer tab. Scrolling to the bottom, we can see User Data. This includes the contact details I entered. This information is being pushed to the data layer by my website when people complete their purchase. And this is what we're going to use to configure things in Google Tag Manager. I do need to highlight that while Google has an automatic option for capturing these details, in most cases you will need to push the information to the data layer yourself so it's available to your tags. Okay, let's close Tag Assistant. And let's close the website. And in the web container, let's navigate to Variables. And let's click New to create a new variable. Let's name the variable Data Layer User Provided Data. Now let's select Variable Configuration. And let's choose Data Layer Variable as the type. For the data layer variable name, we enter user_data, all lowercase. This will capture all of the user data being pushed to the data layer by the website. Now let's save the variable. And we need to create one more variable, so let's click New again. Let's name this variable User Provided Data. Let's select Variable Configuration. And let's choose User Provided Data as the type. Now let's select Code. And using the drop-down, let's select the variable we just created. This variable will translate the user data from the data layer into a format that the Google Analytics tag can recognize and use. Okay, now we can save the variable. Now let's navigate to Tags. And we're going to create a new tag to capture the user-provided data so it's available in our server-side container. To do this, let's click New. And let's name the tag Google Analytics form Submit. Now let's select Tag Configuration. Choose Google Analytics and select GA4 Event as the tag type. Now let's select our measurement ID variable. Okay, now we need to name the event we're sending to Google Analytics. I'm going to name this one form_submit. I need to highlight that the enhanced measurement feature in Google Analytics can automatically track the same event. So you might want to disable that to prevent duplicate form submission events in your reports. If you'd like details for the steps to do this, please let me know in the comments. Next, we need to select Event Parameters. And for the name, let's enter user_data. And for the value, let's enter 2 opening curly braces. And let's select the user-provided data variable we just created. Now we just need to add a trigger to our tag. To do this, let's select Triggering. And let's click the plus sign on the top right corner to create a new trigger. Let's name the trigger All Form Submissions. And let's select Trigger Configuration. Now let's choose Form Submission as the trigger type. This trigger will fire our tag for every form submission on the website. If you only wanted the tag to fire for specific forms, you could add a condition to the trigger, but I'm going to leave the defaults, and let's save the trigger. And we can save the tag. We've now created a tag that will fire every time a form is submitted on the website, and this will pass the user-provided data to our server-side container. Now it's time to test that everything is set up correctly and working. To do this, we're going to preview both our server-side container and our web container. You can use the drop-down to switch to your server-side container. However, I've already opened my server-side container in another tab, so I'm going to select this. And let's click Preview. The server-side debug mode opens in a new tab. Now let's head back to our web container. And let's click Preview for our web container. Tag Assistant opens. And let's click Connect. The website loads. Now let's view a product. And let's add it to the cart. And let's check out. Now let's enter our contact details. And complete the purchase. To see that the Enricher is working, let's also complete the mailing list form on the right. And submit the form. Now let's open the Tag Assistant tab. This is the preview for our web container. Now let's select the Form Submission event on the left. And let's select the Variables tab. Looking at the user-provided data variable, we can see all of the information that was captured. This includes email address, phone number, and address, which are all now being stored by the Enricher Power-Up in Stape. Let's check this for our server-side container. To do this, let's select the Debug Mode tab. Now let's select the Form Submit event. And choose the Event Data tab. Scrolling down, we can see all of the user data again. And to check that it's working, let's also select the Page View event for our Thank You page. Now let's select the Tags tab. And let's select the Google Ads conversion tag. And let's select the outgoing HTTP request that includes form in the URL. Looking at the request URL, we can see it includes a parameter called EME. And this parameter includes the hashed user data from the enricher. Okay, now let's head back to Stape. Let's select the Power-Ups tab. And let's click Configure next to Enricher. Now let's select the Profiles tab. We can see a user profile has been created and stored in Stape. The email and other details we submitted are all available. Now that the enricher is running, your Google Ads conversion tags will have access to more complete user data over time. As this flows through, you should see the event match quality for your enhanced conversions improve in Google Ads. To check on this, you can head to Google Ads and navigate back to your conversion settings. Once you've opened the conversion, you can check the diagnostic section to see if your match rates are improving. It can take some time for data to build up, so check back after the enricher has had some time to collect and apply the user data to the events you're collecting. It's worth taking the time to set up the Enricher Power-Up in Stape. It can have a significant impact on your conversion data over time, especially if people don't always convert in the same session they provide their details. To get started with Stape and the Enricher Power-Up, I've included a link in the description below. You'll also find a promo code that's valid for a limited time. When you use the code to start a new paid plan, you'll get a special discount. If you have any questions about the enricher or server-side tagging, let me know in the comments below. And if you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.